RCA, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. I was just ordering a bunch of Taco Bell, and then I started getting chased by some people.
Fair enough. Okay, so here's the deal. I'm going over a video that is part of a documentary called Anime Exposed, and it's from a Christian studio called Little Light Studio. They're basically making the argument effectively that anime is evil, like devil's propaganda, and it is corrupting the youth. It's very weird in like the imagery and everything that they're using, and we're only like 7 minutes in. But I just got to the point where I'm just like, no. I need an actual fucking apologist to help me with this. I need an apologist weeb to help me specifically.
What? But to say, I'm looking at the website right about now, man. I'll tell you what, I'm looking at that's like this main like deal that's being sponsored out here. Like, it's like available now on DVD and digital, like Little Light Studios.tv, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's the artwork on the piece was kind of made me feel weird.
Yeah. But to say, like, it's like Dark Secrets of Anime Exposed, yet this thing looks like it was made by an amateur anime artist. I'm like, what?
What's even weird is that they've got a single Asian person in the room, like, doing the documentary with them, and she's the one person who hasn't seen anime, apparently. I'm just like, wait, this is weird. This is all kinds of, like, weirdly developed. Let me see if I can share my screen with you in a way that will allow you to listen to this absolute madness. Okay, so I'm gonna hit.
By the way, am I on stream with you right about now? Or
you are on stream with me. Everybody who is listening, this is my friend RCA, Reformed Christian Apologist.
Hi, PayPal.
If he sounds obnoxious, don't worry. Yes, he is like that all the time. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I am kidding. Okay, so can you see what I'm broadcasting to you?
Let me see. Oh yeah. Yeah, I believe I see it. I see a Bakugo. Baku?
You see Super Explosion Deathman, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you hear it when I play it?
Anime, like, when did you first start getting into this?
My first anime was like in fifth.
So could you hear that?
Yeah, a little bit.
Sweet. Okay, technology is working for once in my life. Let's go.
Grade. It was Attack on Titan, which was a mistake because I was a 5th grader, and that the mother getting the head torn off was a little much for me.
They're gonna show that first bit. Spoilers if you haven't seen Attack on Titan. Aaron's mom gets chomped.
At this age,
this
think of the shock and horror that something like this would happen to your mother.
My first anime was Attack on Titan.
It's so look, if they think that's traumatizing, I'm sorry. Maybe they should have looked up Full Metal Alchemist for this part. You want to talk about mother trauma?
I mean, there's all kinds of trauma you can find. You look Berserk, looks what was that? The one of the Blood Sea, or like, there's a lot of things that made me like such a realize. Like, people say, "Oh, anime's for children." Oh, really? Let me show you a prime example, son.
Like this, the argument basically seems to go. This is a cartoon. Cartoons are meant for kids. Why are these cartoons showing blood and gore? Like, okay, cool. The first movie that was largely shown in color was fucking Wizard of Oz. Wizard of Oz is definitely a movie that is easily digestible for children, potentially even meant for kids. I could do a premise this exact same way. All in-color movies are meant for children because the in-color movies I've been exposed to were meant for children. So therefore, Nightmare on Elm Street and, you know, Resident Evil and Species and all these movies, they should not exist. They're evil. They're corrupting the children.
Right, like, if that is the argument, that it's because of it's animated, and therefore the main target is therefore with children, and therefore trying to trick it with these kinds of things, that's not a logically following argument at that point, because at that point, like, we have clearly, number one, what the rating states on who the intended audience would be at that point. Number two, like, especially if you go to like the American versions of these things, like, for example, you got like a Family Guy and American Dad. Cartoons, clearly. Do they clearly have themselves labeled as being intended for kids? Obviously not. Why? Rating systems exist to show TVMA. This is for a mature audience. Likewise, there's the same thing with what you see in these animes. Sometimes you have them for the kiddies. You have them like the flippin' Pokemon and all that kind of stuff. And then bada bing, bada boom, you get to blood and gore and profanities and partial nudity. Yeah, that's clearly not for kids.
You know, like, this is, if the argument's just going to be this artwork should not exist because artwork is categorically for children, that feels like what they're kind of going for, and it's weird to me. And the reason that I wanted to bring in specifically, and also my friend Renita Chan in the chat as well, y'all are both friends to me. You're like Academic Apologist. She is a friend of mine who happens to also be Christian, and y'all are both major anime fans. And at the end of the day, I don't think that any of the anime you've watched have made you rebel against the Lord or any dumb shit like that.
No, in fact, actually, that's the one thing that's weird, is that I tried to do it back then, but with everything that's been going on, it's been weird with it. That's the idea, like, for example, we had I tried to do like this thing called anime parables, which is you'd find certain things that could be reflective of something you could see that correlates to the Christian view that we had on things, such as, for example, what was the one I did on Rurouni Kenshin and the emphasis on repentance. The correlation on how it can be a demonstration to understand properly the notion of repentance within Christian theology. So there are things I could even see through there. Furthermore, I've been to conventions, I've been to where this person's at, like you're meeting up at these conventions and everything like that. I have not wanted to rebel at all, I'm not sure. Have I sung terribly at karaoke? That is definitely what happened at one point. There's a video of me screaming that one opening to Death Note where I'm just screaming "What's up, people?" and just running around and just going into the crowd and everything. Sure, that, if you want to call it rebellious, but other than that, I've shared the gospel there. I've hosted my panels there regarding the manor. I've handed out tracts there. So I mean, if they want to say I'm rebelling at that point, I mean, that's a very strange way of rebelling at that point. So no, yeah, I don't think that therefore if you see it, it's got some kind of thing that's going to automatically blah, 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 kind of control
the imagery they used at the beginning before you popped in, they were showing imagery from right before Rey absorbed Adam in End of Eva, because it's it's a corpse on a cross. Obviously that's going to be ooh, super scary for somebody who's never seen imagery like that before. And they didn't say anything about Evangelion yet, but they kept using. They used Evangelion. They used Kagome being held in, I think it was Naraku's pentagram. They used the Seal of Orichalcos being summoned in Yu-Gi-Oh! Anything that just looked like they could say it's satanic.
Right. So here's a fun story about that, actually. So I think the best thing would be the transmutation symbol from Full Metal.
There was a brief point where they showed that as well, right before showing a piece from Death Note.
Right, and so here's what I want to point out from a friend of mine. A friend of mine named Beckel best pointed this out, especially on the podcast where we actually talked about a while back on anime and Christians. He was a guest to talk about it, and he talked about how he stopped personally watching it around the second season. It was apparently it wasn't the transmutation that did it, but the girl. See, he mentioned a girl or something that would do something like that, but it looked different, more so that it was like a pentagram. Now, he said that's the reason that then he stopped watching it, because he just wasn't comfortable with the imagery. However, here's the one thing that he would point out, where he would use the catchphrase that is known as that's a Romans 14 issue. Him personally wouldn't feel comfortable with that. But if, say, someone else, like myself, were watching that and were comfortable not being weakened or having any kind of fault with it or anything like that, he wouldn't come in saying, stay away from it or anything like that. He realizes at that point that for him personally, he just couldn't do with it. So if you don't like it personally, that's fine. But if someone else is able to watch it, but yet still be sound in the faith and, dedicated to Christianity, then, I mean, I don't see what the problem is, and that's what his deal is there. And I think that's where this person should try to at least take that if it's something you don't like personally.
So basically, just comes down. It basically just comes down to your friend saw the imagery, was uncomfortable with it, and stepped away. Which again, could be attributed to literally any kind of imagery in any show. Everybody has some line that makes them uncomfortable.
Right, exactly. So there is bound to be something, but he won't basically like try to force or make something saying this is evil, and therefore say if you watch it, then you're of evil or you are with evil or something like that. He would basically say that is the most illogical thing to do, even from the Christian view.
Well, because it's based at that point, it's based entirely on your feelings. I felt uncomfortable, therefore this is evil. Like there's literally zero logic involved in that. I can parse that into a syllogism, and it will never be valid.
Yep, and that's personally where I see a lot of these are, is that it's mostly like a sort of emotional or existentialist kind of view, where it's mostly about what you experience or what you feel in terms of this kind of idea that's basically the standard of what you would determine truth to be. Because I've asked people, because funny enough, when I saw like the title of like what was on your stream or whatnot, at first I thought you were covering this one guy that I encountered who was basically doing a documentation on the furry community and how it's rooted in Satanism, because it came across with that similar notion where he put down like that kind of thing, but it's all emotional on that one too, because like this guy was saying, trying to base it off of one person experience and make the fallacious assumption to just group it in together, like he found out about diaper furs and therefore he says all furries are diaper furs, and I'm like, nah.
It's like the people who find out about fur fascists and then suddenly think that all furries are part of the alt-right. Oh my god, it's also... He
actually did that too. He did that too.
My friend Renita Chand also just pointed out in a DM with me, one of the things her mom used to try to make her do was make manga versions of Bible stories, and she ended up refusing because her mom would use... at least her family would use Christianity as an excuse to restrict her freedoms, and manga was her escape. So it was like, you don't want to mix your freedoms and your escape together. It doesn't work very well. That's very that's very Lenore from Castlevania. Don't do. I'm not gonna expound on that for anybody who hasn't seen season 4 of Castlevania.
But it's funny though. I actually have like 5 volumes of something called manga Bible there. Like I have manga Messiah, manga Revelation, manga Genesis, and all that kind of stuff, which is interesting. It's interesting seeing like a long-haired Moses that has red hair. Definitely very anime style protagonist identifier right there.
Yeah. I think we're going to do a little bit more of this, and then we'll probably conclude on here, because I don't want this episode to get too terribly long. I'm going to have to do this in multiple parts. Jesus Christ. That is the topic of conversation today, I guess. Let's go.
Woo! He's the reason that I started watching it.
This guy,
he was like, hey, you should totally watch this. It's on Netflix. I think you'd like it. And from there, I started watching like Death Note, a bunch of other stuff like that.
Whoa, these guys are super young to be exposed to this kind of violence.
Wait. What animes did he know? I know he said Death Note. What was the...
Yeah, Death Note. I don't know what the other one was, but I'm about to say, hopefully it was you, because I heard Netflix. Did you watch the series, or did you watch that weird movie?
I think it probably would be the series. If he actually became a fan of it, probably not the weird movie. Okay, good. So from my understanding, though, Death Note isn't a stupendously violent anime, because most of the ways characters die in that show is via heart attack anyway.
True. It's mostly the only time you would get the really big violence part, because that's where I remember, because that's when I first heard about Death Note, was at the very beginning, because while indeed the heart attack was one of the things he was trying to test out, okay, apart from heart attack, how else can I do it?
Yeah, because you could, if you write in just the name, it defaults to heart attack. But if you write in something other, if you write in the name and then a cause of death, it will then kill them in that way.
Yeah, so there would be like, get them to let their guns at each other's head and shoot their own heads off, or there would be somewhat of a heart attack, but it was very dramatic to the point that it's launching them, and they launch off a building. It shows them falling, and then it was splatter gore. There's a heart over there. His right arm's over there. It was holding a cigarette. That kind of stuff.
But it's like so when I see stuff like that, that doesn't trigger me into saying that this is a violent anime. That means to me there are moments of violence in it. When I think of a violent show, I think of Invincible. Right? That is a violent show to me.
Very violent.
If we're talking about say the Resident Evil animated parts, that's very violent. There's headshots happening all the time. There's splatters. There's gore happening fairly frequently. Just having individual moments every now and again where you might see a bit of gore does not register to me as violent in anywhere near the same way. Let's go ahead and click again, see how further we can go.
So you're into anime. What was your first anime you ever watched?
My first anime.
Why is your sound mixing so bad here? This is a documentary. You had a professional editor.
Was Heaven's Lost Property.
Did he just say Heaven's Lost Property?
You're only confused because he said the word heaven. That's it.
And that just kickstarted that genre, and then I branched off.
How old were you when you was?
10, 11.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
I would even say that there's tons of animes that adults shouldn't watch either.
Like what? What anime should adults not watch? Besides the Japanese dub of Ghost Stories. It's terrible. Don't watch it.
Unless this person's trying to say adult Christians, that'd be the only thing. But if he's talking about adults in general, then I mean,
well, they're a ministry studio. So I think that they would say that adults in general, because if their point is going to be that I can throw this logistically. So, premise 1, they want more people to become Christian. Premise 2, anime creates some kind of magical buffer that can strip somebody of their Christendom or stop them from being a Christian. Premise 3, anime is anti-Christian, therefore no one should watch anime, because in premise 1, they want everyone to be Christian. Because I don't think their point is just that anime is going to deconvert somebody through its subtle imagery. I think they also might argue that anime puts up some kind of bulwark from God, I guess, which is weird. Because I would say, and I said this in the beginning, if you have to prayerfully determine whether or not you can watch a cartoon, then you're walking in with very weak faith to begin with. And that's what I would have said when I was a Christian.
Right, I can understand, in terms of some things. Now, let me just say this. In general, anime adults should not watch is Redo of Healer. I'm just going to say that right off the bat in light of what I've heard and seen lately. Number 2, if they're worried about, what could be in some sort of, the only thing I could mostly say would probably be maybe a hentai. Because that's, less than pornography and that kind of stuff, and that would kind of be there. But, in terms of, for example, let's say some of the ones you've listed so far, Full Metal Alchemist, Death Note, all these other different ones. If the objection is violence, certain suggestive references of any of that kind of sort, because that's the thing. I had a guy named Jamal Williams who I was responding to with this kind of stuff. So that's why usually if you find anything of my name with anime on there, it's usually you're going to find one of those old videos, because we had a lot of back and forths on it. And the objection was because there was this content in there, therefore it's wrong. And then I bring up the objection.
By that logic, the Bible's wrong, though, and he wouldn't accept that.
Exactly my point. Exactly what I was about to say.
Fucking David harvesting 200 foreskins to get a wife. That's far more graphic than most things you'll find in anime. That's...
And then don't forget the issue about and it's not about a good thing, but it does mention the statement of people going into extreme lust and talking about they are craving the people that have the...
Yeah, the whole, stuff in Romans where they say, they give themselves to it.
Well, no. I'm talking about the one that's in Ezekiel, where it's talking about these guys having quote emissions.
Emissions like that of a horse.
Donkeys. Yeah, well, some say donkey, some say horse, but either way, it's some sort of animal along those lines. You kind of get the general gist along those. But there's the foreskin, there's that, there's the mention of the two bears of Elijah.
Oh yeah, when the child insults Elijah, the bears maul the children down. There's also there's also like the raping of Lot from his daughters, and that's like early in Genesis. Like there's all kinds of stuff. If the argument's gonna be violence and suggestive material are in anime, therefore people shouldn't watch it, then you've now excluded your Bible out of the conundrum. And if your goal is to evangelize, you kind of need that.
Correct. And hence because that's the other thing too, because like if you do then try to examine, because some people, I don't know if this person might be one of them, that would be like against people trying to remove certain stories or remove certain truths from the Bible or what was history from it. I've looked, because I was curious one day. I went to the Christian bookstore and found like one of the little children's Bibles, because I'm like, okay, you got these translations out there, and then they got translations specifically simplified for kids, or even just it's supposed to be word for word and all that. Usually when you go try to find some of these controversial ones in the children's Bibles, they remove it altogether in there. I can understand that it might be a thing you want to try to teach and explain to them at a later age, but again, in general, the idea of, because it's not just simply the kids here that's mentioned with the argument, it's even the adults in general. Adults in general are reading their Bibles. Adults in general are reading and knowing that there is this kind of stuff as well within, like you mentioned, and like I mentioned, with what can be on an equal scale on it. So the idea of just simply content alone, I don't think qualifies it as being a reason to therefore say it's demonic or problematic for people. And that's why, they're already coming off as, when I look at the title, their little YouTube channel, and then of course what you play so far, doesn't come off as a person who has consistently considered the reason for what they stand on this particular hill.
Also, Avian, I don't remember if this happened last year or the year before that, but I think me and RC have actually had the "Was Mary a lolly" conversation.
Wait, God,
because Mary was 14.
Well, that's the thing. There's also there's the 14 is the one thing that's usually mentioned in some tradition, but because this is the one that you normally hear from the Muslims who try to object to it, is that they'll say like Mary was 9, like Aisha was, because they have to tie it back to theirs. Well, that's the funny thing, is that they say it's immoral, because what they try to do is they go with one like 5th or 6th century biography work on Jesus, and what it says in it is Mary was 9, Joseph was 90. I
thought the scholarly consensus was like Mary was 14 and Joseph was like 60.
Yeah, and that's usually what they kind of try to go with. Like that's what at least some of the scholars say. But this was like from like a 6th century biography. I forget what exactly the name of it was, but I know that when you usually try to hear Muslims that use that particular objection, they are usually appealing to that as their go-to, is that biography. But yeah, like I remember that conversation.
That's a different conversation.
Different conversation altogether.
Let's get a little further into this silliness.
These cyborg chicks like fall from heaven, and it's a harem anime.
Yeah, and this one is super messed up. Not only is the anime extremely inappropriate with the images that are borderline pornographic, the story is
okay, so they're talking about ecchi.
Also super blasphemous.
Yep.
Wait, the story is super blasphemous?
Well, trying to remember what the story even was, because I'm trying to remember. I know, like, I've heard of it, Heaven's Lost Property. I remember it was a harem, and it was ecchi.
Merely having, like, an ecchi harem that has angels in it, like an angel harem, that's not blasphemous. Blasphemy would be the anime declaring itself the true scripture and the true representation of God the Christ. That would be blasphemy.
Well, there would be another way, dude. It's just simply that it would be regarding the issue of how is God depicted in the whole thing or that. But even if it was, the solution is simple. Okay, you have this deal with it. Obviously, it's not going to be promoted. That don't watch it. Therefore, and also don't lump it in. Therefore, because of this one, that kind of what we mentioned earlier about the furry thing. Just because it has this one here,
you found one blasphemous anime, therefore all anime is blasphemous.
Exactly, and because that's again a what do they call that? Guilt by association, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, guilt by association fallacy. It's also hasty generalization fallacy. If you use, hold on, there's three fallacies at play. There's guilt by association. There's hasty generalization, where you've used a small sampling to generalize a whole group, and then there's also the fallacy of composition. You are arguing that the whole is one thing because you have identified a problem with one of its parts.
Yeah.
Fallacy bingo!
So, like, the protagonist has a bunch of cyborg chicks that can literally perform any task.
Interesting.
And he's into panties.
I love panties with designs on them. I'm starting to get sick and tired of this foolishness. Sure, you got it.
So they're like...
Okay, yeah, sexual humor. That happens in adult shows. Okay?
I just want to comment that I almost thought that was Hatsune Miku at one point. That clip there. I just want to point that out.
Like, the only part that I would say is weird is the scaling of the characters makes it seem like some of them are coded to be children, and that is strange. Like, that I would hold a little bit of issue with, but past that, you have a sexual comedy. And cool. I'm gonna go denounce the evils of everything Rumiko Takahashi has ever made. Ranma 1/2 is the devil, guys. I'm so sorry.
Sex robots or something.
Yeah, but
Kind of.
they're programmed to do whatever their master wants them to do.
Okay, this is the whole without a master whose slave shall I be type of deal. This is just a standard conundrum that people find. This can be reframed, and they're showing this here deliberately. This is propaganda. There's a reason they're showing this here. This can be reframed as, my job just fired me, and yes, I have a lot of personal freedom now that they don't have control over my life, but the only thing that gave me meaning was devoting 12 hours to that job every day, and now I don't know what to do. That's all this is. Just, it's being played through a different medium, but that's all that conundrum is.
So who's the master? I mean, describe him. What is it?
I don't know. He's like the tyrannical guy that lives upstairs.
Really? You're gonna take RCA, do you see what's being done here?
So basically, it's based on what one particular person's interpretation of like the whole deal is.
Not just that. Look at the wording specifically, the wording that they chose to show.
Yeah, I know, the tyrannical guy that lives upstairs.
It's blasphemous because God is the tyrannical guy that lives upstairs, controlling the angels. La la
Right.
la.
Right.
Oh my God. Okay, continue, please.
Oh yeah.
You'll remain my toy for as long as you live. What's wrong, good for nothing? Have you forgotten what comes next? This is the part where you beg, "Oh, please, master, please don't scrap me." You have your orders, Delta.
And so that got you into it.
Yeah, that shot me down
Hold on a
that
second.
path.
Who was that? Was that supposed to be God, or is that like Michael the Archangel or stuff? Like, who the heck is that?
Yeah, that's it's not very clear. Anybody in chat who's seen this anime, please let me know. This is not very clear.
Yeah, because I haven't seen it, and yeah.
And then I branched off to different genres from there.
Yeah, those kids were like 14.
I know, right? It's so not okay or appropriate for such young kids to watch.
Okay. This is effectively an argument against literally all media ever. People get exposed to different things at different ages.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody we interviewed was super in anime. I mean, there wasn't even...
You were at an anime convention!
That's a fair point.
What do you expect to find at an anime convention except people who are into anime? Oh my gosh.
Even a
I
single
can just picture like your avatar with like wide-eyed, like freaking out right now.
I actually didn't hit the button for that. Now I have!
It's canon, folks. Be sure to add it.
We're doing this all in this mode now. I'm just sending the image to you. There you go. It's a weeb convention. What do you expect?
person who wasn't into it. And when asked about the appropriateness of the violence or sexual content, they all had this to say.
But there's some anime like, I don't know, Kill La Kill and like Devil May Cry, like stuff like that, that it's not really meant for kids, but somehow kids are getting into it anyways.
The same way they've gotten into violent movies and literally anything else at any point in their life ever.
Like, and also video games. Call of Duty, for example. Grand Theft Auto, for example. You think that's just a grown 30-year-old man with a high-pitched squirrel voice screaming at you that you just shot him in a headshot when you're running a good kill streak? No,
I am the master at Call of Duty! I will fuck your mother!
Jamie, you better be doing your homework!
Okay, Katini, thank you very much for redeeming it. Oh, whoa. Oh, whoa.
Oh, wow.
Emily the Fennec, are you late? It depends on how much brain damage you wanted to suffer.
Sort of like violent elements to it. Some people
Violent?
criticize
Wolf's
it.
Rain is extremely violent. It's very bloody. Especially the end of it is very bloody.
And it aired on Adult Swim. Yes.
That should be a good giveaway.
Yeah, it's got a lot of fighting.
It seems like a lot of the anime now is like pretty hardcore.
Oh yes, a lot of old anime are as well, but it just, yeah. I think that older anime were very targeted towards adults, and now they're trying to target more towards children too, so yeah.
So the point there is not that they're trying to take anime that is adult-oriented and targeted to kids. The point there is that more anime now is being made targeted more towards kids. As an example, watch early Dragon Ball, then watch Dragon Ball Z. It is a lot more raunchy, it is a lot more violent, there is more blood, there is more gore. Now, watch Dragon Ball Super. It's actually fairly appropriate for children now.
Which I find very interesting and weird, but hey, I don't really question much these days.
It's because it had a weekday time slot in Japan originally. But the time slot that it has in Japan for Super is a Sunday morning time slot, which is a time slot deliberately aimed for children. By having a Sunday morning time slot, they have to tone it down.
Okay, that is totally understandable at that point.
That is the exact reason why Dragon Ball Super is toned down from Dragon Ball Z. But just as an example, a show that is definitely more violent in its earlier stages than we get later on in Super.
How old were you when you saw the first anime? What was it?
I was approximately 8
So
years
we got
old.
a Goblin Slayer and an Overlord.
When I watched Pokemon for the first time, and then I just gradually started with Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, Cardcaptor, Sakura, all those.
It's wild that these kids get hooked because of Sailor Moon when it's full of extremely inappropriate and overly sexualized content.
Okay, pause that one for a second. Mother trucker. Okay. my sister watched that show when she was growing up, and she turned out like a fine Christian that she is. So I don't want to know what exactly happened there. But the only thing I can remember that's inappropriate was when America decided to dub it at that point, because they, if I'm not mistaken, the whole notion was originally there is indeed a lesbian lover and all that kind of stuff.
They turned them into cousins in the American version.
Exactly. So it went from being in Japan into Sweet Home Alabama.
So I do know what they're talking about. They're the only really like dicey thing in Sailor Moon is the transformation sequences, and that's because when the sailors transform, their clothes pop off of their body, and then the Sailor Scout uniforms go on. However, when that happens, their bodies are completely covered in light. You can't see anything. Yep. You can see a vague shape, and by that logic, all leotards are now the most sexualized thing in the entire world. Go ahead and get your rocks off to gymnasts, everybody.
And then there's also some of the references to breasts and all that in the Bible as well. I mean, if we want to consistently be against that,
if we're gonna throw our judgments without engaging in whataboutism, we have to throw them everywhere.
Yeah.
But Renita says sexualized are not any more sexualized than a ballerina would be. Well, exactly. They're literally Sailor Scouts wearing tutus.
One more thing. I noticed how you occasionally get like comments going after you in some of your videos and all that kind of stuff. With me being on here, am I gonna get some of these homies trying to track me down on my deal?
Maybe, but also this is effectively an hour and 5-minute long segment, and you're coming in for the last 20 minutes, so most of those people, I'm not even gonna lie to you, probably didn't have the attention span to get here anyway.
Either way.
Okay, I think we're gonna end it on that for now, because we are an hour and 5 minutes, and I would like to get into the other segments, and I'm gonna continue on this one on another day. But I did want to get you in here for a little bit of the fun perspective there, so that somebody couldn't just come in and just go, well, you're an atheist reprobate, and that's why you think anime is okay. Bitch, no, I pulled a Christian apologist in. Fuck off!
Even then, again, that would be a bit of a fallacious thing to say that the objection is wrong because from atheists. You could probably say maybe based on a certain presupposition thing, but don't just dismiss it just because it's from an atheist. Actually, like, engage with what's being said. And this is a Christian here that was just pulled in to say this as well. That being said, yeah, I am it's not the first time this person here that I've ever heard of something similar. Like I said, Jamal was a classic example on my channel that I've discussed this with, and when I have made videos on the topic, the comments that would mention that kind of stuff, I even had to kind of explain this to my parents. My dad was like thinking, that it was not satanic, but that it was just childish because it's a cartoon. But even though this, stuff we've seen before that was in cartoons, but yet they were definitely more mature audiences. My stepmom had defended me on that notion because she had learned that kind of stuff after I told it. And heck, we even watched Spice and Wolf when she was just definitely not into anime at the time.
I'd say Spice and Wolf even has like nude scenes, but that's not like, they're not sexualized nude scenes. They're literally, one of the characters is a half animal, and it's perfectly fucking normal for her, basically.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, my stepmom, one of the inspirations for me as a Christian nowadays, because she's like those, raised the hand in church during this worship, very much. There's times I go over there, she's having like her own little worship deal where she's doing her own prayer and everything like that. So she's very hardcore dedicated to it, like most serious person I know that is within that deal. And yet she saw that and watched it and had no problem with it. So even like, I'm not talking like people like me, the apologists that are online, the most modern types these days that like get into philosophy and all these other different deals. Even some of the people like her who is old school would not have much of a problem with these. The main people are just either not aware of a lot of stuff or just being introduced to this, that they have to take the notion of preference on it and make it this, it needs to be like this while reaching as far as they can, like grasping for straws without barely even being able to grab one to begin with. that's just how I see it from this, because that's, again, the same old song and dance. I saw this with Jamal. I see this with other people that were making this in comments, and this person is no different when they're trying to do this whole little documentary kind of thing.
Well, with that said, I do agree, it does seem like a lot of the same, just, I am uncomfortable, therefore this is evil type of deal. That's the thing that I get when I deal with Call for an Uprising, too. He literally just goes, I'm uncomfortable with this thing, and then makes a 15-minute video about how it's definitely Satan and definitely the mark of the beast, and blah, 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 blah. It just goes on and on. Every single time, without change. That said, though, RCA, I do want to thank you for hopping on and devoting your time at literally zero notice.
Hey, I mean, it caught me at a time where I'm able to do it, and I appreciate time being on here with your crazy cat ears and VR face and everything like that, where I'm just a floating voice. I could be on the left side of the screen, could be on the right. Who knows? All I know is
I'm hiding him
here,
behind the TV, everyone.
Dang it, you gave away the secret. It's supposed to be a hide-and-seek game.
I'm hiding him behind the TV.
Dang it. All right. Well, as I mentioned, there's the Taco Bell that was there. We just got home with like 50 stolen cases of the new naked chicken chalupas or whatever it is. So we're going to be sure to avoid the cops for a while. Thanks for having me on, man.
Thank you very much. Go enjoy drowning in Baja Blast.
Yahoo!
Alrighty. With that said, thank you all for watching this part. Part 2 I will be doing later. There's a whole lot to dig into here. Holy shit. This is a long episode. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you later. But if you're on stream, I'm still going. This is just the end of the segment. Insert end of video tagline here and stuff.